name's Chad from the Move Lab, here with a little video to help with any low back pain or low back stiffness, any restriction in the lumbar spine or pelvic region. So shout out to the Unbearables, also shout out to Functional Range Conditioning and the boys over at the Functional Range Systems headquarters. Thank you for sharing this knowledge. So we'll get right into it. When it pertains to anything having to do with joint maintenance, the best thing you can give your joints is movement. Daily movement, constant stimulation. Spoke to a physiotherapist one time and he said, motion is lotion. Never forget that. So, as it pertains to the low back, you want to be able to segment your spine. So the spine is not meant to move as one big clunky unit. It's meant to move in segments, but it's something that needs to be trained. It's something that needs to be practiced. The more movement that you can bring into the low back, into those vertebrae that make up the lumbar spine, the more synovial fluids your body will bring into that area. This is how your body is able to keep your joints hydrated, lubricated. That's how your body diffuses nutrients and oxygen into your joints, facilitates healing, excuse me, and it's your body's natural anti-inflammatory process as well. So for the low back, you can come onto your back and you want to begin by differentiating between anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. So if we can bring some movement into the pelvis, that's a good start. And so we lay down on the floor because the floor offers the nervous system a little bit of tactile feedback, which is feedback through touch. So this just helps to bring more awareness into this area, and it's going to help you to establish stronger neuromuscular connections. So as I lay here, you might notice that I have a natural arch, natural curve to my low back, to my lumbar spine. So coming into your anterior pelvic tilt, you want to try to over-exaggerate that arch. So I'm going to press down towards my sacrum. So your sacrum is the little triangle-shaped bone at the base of the spine. I'm going to press down towards my sacrum and rock towards my tailbone. Now as I do this, I'm going to start to over-exaggerate that arch in the low back, and I'm creating a little bit of extension here through the lumbar spine. So when you're practicing this, if you wanted to check in on it for yourselves, you should have enough space that you can slide a hand underneath the small of your back. You should have a nice little tunnel there. For your posterior tilt, you want to do the opposite. So coming back to neutral, posterior tilt, you're going to draw the belly button in towards the spine. Your low back is going to press down flat. There's going to be no space to slide your hands underneath. When you press the low back down to the floor, you're going to start to create some engagement through the abdominals. From here, you want to try to curl just your pelvis up off of your mat without letting your low back lift. So you're going to start to press down a little bit harder into the low back. You're going to create stronger engagement through the abdominals. And here you're creating a little bit of flexion through that lumbar spine. So if you wanted to check in on this for yourselves, you should have enough space that you can slide a hand or maybe a thumb underneath your butt, but no further. And then you're just going to play with transitioning between the two positions. So pressing down towards the sacrum, arching the low back, you're creating your anterior pelvic tilt, bringing extension into the lumbar spine. Coming back to neutral, we go posterior tilt, belly button draws in towards the spine, the low back presses down flat. Curling just the pelvis up. It's like you're trying to tuck your tail between your legs, creating a little bit of flexion through the lumbar spine. And so as you sort of rock back and forth in this way, it's almost like you're creating a little bit of a self-massage through the low back and into the pelvis. If you're having trouble creating movement in that area, then you can also use props to help you. Again, just to provide the nervous system a little extra tactile feedback. And it also makes a nice fulcrum point to press down on. So I I like to use lacrosse balls. They're a little bit harder, so they can get a little bit deeper into those tissues. You can also use tennis balls. Tennis balls are a little bit softer, so it might be good to start with the tennis ball and then move to the harder lacrosse ball. If the tennis balls are too soft, you can also freeze them before you use them. And you can also use a water bottle, 500 ml water bottle. Again, I would recommend to freeze that before you use it, just so it doesn't kind of crumple under the weight of your body and the pressure that you're putting down on that bottle. So you're going to take the balls and you're going to bring them under the low back, right where you feel that tightness. So you want to place it down on those muscles and wherever you want to create your movement as well. And so if I'm having a hard time articulating the lumbar spine, I can use the balls as a little fulcrum point, and it allows me to kind of fold over them. And then as I find my posterior pelvic tilt, as I start to create flexion through the lumbar spine, I'm pressing down on those balls. And so you can play with that. Extension, flexion. If it feels good, you can also use those balls as like a little massage tool, using your hands and your feet just to kind of roll back and forth. Again, once you start to really find those sensitive spots, those tense areas, you just want to linger there, just sit on it, breathe, and then again producing a little bit of movement. Just to get those joints moving. Of the balls, you change your fulcrum point. Ball at a time. If you wanted to use the two so that there's a ball on either side of the spine. If you don't have a sleeve, a proper sleeve like this, it's very easy to create one just using an old sock. You can slide your balls in there and then just tie it off, and then you'll have a nice double set.